And my Father, Son, Holy Spirit, amen. Father God, thank you for being the kind of God who hears and answers prayers, for being who you are and how you are. You are the God of love, life, joy, and peace. True love, true life, true joy, and true peace. Father, forgive me for my sins, known or unknown. Please, God, bless this message. Let it be your words and not mine. And please keep the evil one, the hater, the liar, the thief, and the destroyer away from myself, this message, and God bless anybody who might be listening or watching. All right, God bless. Um, it's Mark Anthony DiBello, DiBello, D small I, capital B boy, ELLO. I was taught to spell my name early on. I actually have a Father's Day card that I wrote to my daddy. I think I was 5 years old in a kindergarten class and spelled my name correctly. And there's a reason I'm saying that, and I might mention it later. But this is my monthly message, an update called the Life Update regarding the life and death of my daddy. So I'm going to again try to keep it to an hour, unedited. I'm going to go. I'm a little weary, so hopefully I talk a little less passionately and emotionally and more succinctly, and just give some information. You can see over my shoulder here. I'm going to add some inserts, maybe one or two. I know of one in particular I'm going to add or feature. You can go back to any of these other messages. I think I've done maybe, I don't know, the last 7 or 8 months. And it's just going to be an update of, again, the situation with my dad. I just want to make a note because I played a horse race the other day, the Pegasus Cup at Gulfstream Park. I won most of the day, but I like this blanket that I'm using here. I got it at Del Mar, a racetrack my daddy used to love to go to, and it's from TVG, and it says Del Mar here on the patch, and it's got a picture of a horsey. So I know how much my daddy loved horses, but that's why I like sitting on this blanket. All right, so again, to tell the story, I've learned a couple things since the last message, in which I think I put a lot of graphics up there. Um, so I'm not going to put as many, but again, this story is, the truth of the situation of the life and death of my dad, and in many ways my beloved mom. And I just did some work that I'm not going to post it yet or drop it, as they say. It's a video, but I will at some point. But it kind of relates to this message. But again, I want to record this monthly to give an update, even if it is, like I said, I think February 7th or something today, I think. So anyway, having said that, the story of my dad, I actually started reading his book. I told him when he was alive, just even thinking about him being gone, I could cry all day. And if I'm not crying all day, I'm just angry at what happened to him. And the most evil person I've ever met, who just destroyed him and was totally of the devil. And then those he trusted the most, who betrayed him, his own children, and even some friends and extended family. But anyway, having said that, I told my daddy I would read his book, so I could have more about him after he passed. And I read parts of it while he was alive, and we talked about it. I mean, he basically told me almost every story I've recorded, most of them or a lot of them. He asked me to. He wanted me to. I wanted to too. He's my God on this earth, not Father God, but my lowercase God, if you will, my father, my hero, my best friend. I mean, he's the only one who truly understands me. We're cut from the same cloth. He's the only one who truly loved me and let me love him, and I could just be myself with. And in life, I don't want to get into it because I don't know what strangers watching this, and I just can't get into too much, emotional, personal depth, other than, I'll never get over what happened to my daddy. I mean, it's one thing, when somebody passes of natural causes, or they, die in a blessed way, like maybe in their sleep, or I don't know, they sacrifice their life. Although my daddy did sacrifice his life for many, many, many others, but not just anything but the way he died, which was the way I most feared. So, again, to tell the story briefly, my daddy, and he even mentioned it in his book, um, which I want to just give a disclaimer here. Please, under no circumstances should anybody purchase that book, because there's the person who most, hurt my daddy and destroyed him and caused his death and destruction and loss of everything, including life, is the one who's going to profit from it. But I'll get to that here, momentarily. And if I, bounce around a little bit, I apologize. I'm just going to try to stay more streamlined and focused. But um, so, with regards to my daddy's book, he made a reference about being from the wrong side of the tracks. It's an expression people use. He actually used it when, and you can go to my website, markanthonydibello.com, and click on the projects tab and go to the promoter, and it's the story of the little documentary I did on my daddy and his life as a promoter. And but I just, uh, we discussed his upbringing, and born in Mechanicville, New York. He was actually born Thanksgiving Day. I don't know that I ever realized that. I always knew November 28th, 1932, but think of that. My beloved daddy, who I think, people can say their father's the best father, but I give myself great credit for the way, I was raised and what God has done in my life, and I know what God did in my daddy's life and the life that he had with my mom, Dorothy Leona Burek. But my daddy was born on Thanksgiving Day, and then he died on Easter Sunday. Two holidays. I mean, that alone is remarkable. But again, he was born in Mechanicville, New York, and he told of even more, which I knew his hard upbringing. I mean, he's actually born on the kitchen table in his family home, and my grandpa, his father, worked as a janitor and a laborer in the paper mill. The paper mill was very, it was hard labor. He's an immigrant Italian. He actually died, my grandpa, of emphysema, which happened to a lot of people who worked in that paper mill. And my father discussed the sulfur smell and, that came from the paper plant, and just another bad chemical smell. And then they even lived above what was called the Sons of Italy, which I've actually seen. And when I went to my daddy's apartment, my grandpa, my daddy's place where he grew up with his 5 brothers and sisters. So there were 6 of them, and my mom, my grandpa, and my grandfather in this little apartment, which they were all blessed and grateful for. But, you can just imagine it's just like a scene maybe from The Godfather or some, old Martin Scorsese film, the Italian people. So having said that, the Sons of Italy was a bunch of, it was a club downstairs, and my father used to talk, mentioned about how all the cigarette and cigar smoke especially would come up, and it was always, kind of a racket downstairs. But, they made the best of it, and then got to move a couple larger apartments, or at least one where he was born. Well, he was born on Cypress Ave, Cypress Ave on, like I said, Thanksgiving Day. But anyway, so through his, hard upbringing, I was born in Glens Falls, New York, December 18th. I know he married my mom. I double checked the date now. April 11th, 1959. He married Dorothy Leona Bjork. And I had an aunt who was a real blessing to me for many years until she, the Satan got to her and she became a Judas and told me I was, and I mean, it was a demon. That's why I tell people, when I say go to hell, I don't say it to the person. I say it to the evil spirit in a person. Some, Christian people, or if you go to some churches, they'll say, like, Satan be gone. That's how my daddy used to say it. Some people in a more secular world would just say F you, the word. But you say go to hell, but it's not to the person. I don't want anybody to go to hell. It's to the evil spirit that would say something that's, destructive or deceptive, destructive, and deadly. And that's what this woman said to me. She said I was an accident. How you hear like somebody's born in an accident. So I was conceived in March of 1960. Okay, so my parents were already married, almost a full year. Now maybe they didn't want me. My mom didn't want to get pregnant at the time that she did. But she did, and to me that's not an accident. Wasn't before marriage. It wasn't, like we're totally 100%, I don't think, against it. And I certainly wasn't aborted, thank God. And my birthday, I think, is a really blessed day. 1 week exactly before Christmas, December 18th, 1960. I mean, 1 week before Christmas. So having said that, this person said that about my birth. But again, my parents were married on April 11th, 1958. and I was born again on December 18th, 1960. So then my dad moved us to DeFriestville, and he, had his DiBello Publishing Company, which incorporated the hospital newspapers group or hospital news into that, and that came about from all the interactions that he had with physicians and nurses and hospital staff and executives and such when my mom became terminally ill with pancreatic cancer. So again, my mommy was lost on October 17th, exactly, I know, 7 p.m. Excuse me if I flinch, it's because the kitty boy, my beautiful little kitty boy, is trying to step on the table here. Kitty boy, please don't. Sorry. I got the camera propped up on a little table here, and kitty boy is coming on, so he can just watch now, my beautiful kitty boy. He reminds me of our little boy Nugget we had, Golden Nugget. My mom named him after the casino's little beautiful Cocker Spaniel. Everybody loved Nugget. Of course, the evil person I mentioned, she's the only person I recall ever kicking him. And, just that's how evil people are. But anyway, having said that, so my mommy dies October 17th, 1982. Now, what I read in a little bit more of my dad's book, and I remember, I know explicitly for, many of the stories he told me, I still have, and I started to play a couple more of them, but I just don't know that I ever will. 700 more recordings, actually, no, 750. I've already probably played 700 phone messages, recordings that I have even yet to play back. Most of these are phone messages from my daddy, and most of the tone and tenor is the same. Just he's begging and pleading for help. He needs to get his life saved and get away from the neglect, the use, the abuse, the grooming, the gaslighting, the financial abuse, the physical abuse that he was suffering. I mean, the torment, the manipulation, all of it. He was just, he just wanted to get away. But I'll get to that again here, in some of these new developments. And again, certainly try to keep this under an hour. Actually, much less than that if I can. So having said that, he again in the book relayed the story, the first few pages of how this person, her name was Donna Helen Ricardo Murphy. As I had learned early on, I always thought she was divorced when she met my dad, and she was. She was divorced, or in the process of getting divorced, and so she wants to have a Bible study at his office, which is already suspicious because, first of all, who really asked for that? My father even said it was kind of an odd request. And knowing this person, this is the least Christian human being I've ever met. I mean, and the worst kind of Christians or the worst evil people are the ones who purport to be godly, and they're completely the opposite of God. Their God is money usually, or their God is their own beliefs or their own atheistic beliefs. Because if you don't believe in God, you believe you're God. And you don't believe in the 10 Commandments. You don't believe in the nature of God, but knowing, like I said, He's true love, true life, true joy, and true peace. If you don't believe those things or have even that basic, fundamental understanding of God, you create your own set of commandments and rules and laws and mindset and the way your heart your feelings operate. Even the way physiologically you operate. But again, that's just. I mean, that's how evil this person was. I mean, I knew, and and that's why I told my dad, because what happened was after she had this Bible study or whatever she did there, and I wished my dad were alive for a million reasons. Just one day, I can't even talk about it. But somebody wanted to set him up with somebody, like on a date. Like Tony, your wife's been dead about 5 years. This is like 1987. I'm speaking. So, sure enough, they set him up with her. And in the right book, he said, he was just an accident. He didn't know it was going to be the same person. But I know that it was either her that was behind it, or the person who was the intermediary had an agenda and knew was on her side and said, you know what? I got to get to this guy because he has money and she's poor, no talent, totally ungodly, evil-minded. Again, you're not supposed to marry a divorced person. That's scriptural, because if the female is willing to divorce her husband, she's going to easily divorce you. Now I don't know why her and her husband got divorced. I don't know, what he did or what she did. My guess is that, she was the perpetrator behind anything that was done. And I don't know the guy, never met the guy, but here's the rest of that kind of the story and some of the enlightenment I got about it. So, he mistakenly, which he said would later, he called her the pig whore bitch, and I understand why. And it was the biggest mistake of his life. He mistakenly fell for her. Now, of course, she's all, she knew he had money. That's the reason she first approached him, like my dad said in the Howard Johnson's, asking who the wealthy widower was while he was having lunch and wanted to use his office for a Bible study. And then sure enough gets set up with him because a short time later he was with her. It didn't take her long to, work her way into his life. And she's got these four, and they moved, when he got with her and ended up making the mistake, and I don't even use the word marriage, of being with her, she had everybody kicked out, all his children, me first, and then all the rest of the children kicked out, and then her kids moved in, and her kids were all, they were overweight, classless, they did drugs, they totally disrespected my dad. I mean, they would even change, I mentioned this before, they would change the locks on the doors in the rooms, in our bedrooms as kids that we had, so he couldn't get in, to whether he wanted to check on the, smoke detectors, or he just wanted to see what, the drug smells were about, or, it's his home. But of course, they didn't respect that. They only wanted the money, just like their mother, on her lead. So, excuse me. So having said that, again, he gets with her. I want to say it was 1987. I know it was August something, middle of August. I didn't attend. I told him from the get-go. I said, Dad, this will be the biggest. And here's the reason I told him. I didn't tell him. Let me tell you why. God told me. Father God told me. Mark, warn your father that this is going to be the biggest mistake of his life, and he will lose everything, including his life, because of this one female. Not only that, but I looked, it wasn't hard to discern 21, not that I'm against somebody being 21 years younger, but this unattractive, talentless, classless, I mean, some of the worst characteristics, tagging along divorced with those four children, poor, impoverished. I mean, why do you think she was with my father? As blessed as he was, at all the bonuses of being handsome, intelligent, comedic, generous, with a huge heart, talented, highly successful in so many ways. Those were all bonuses. But that's not what she really cared about. She mostly cared about the money. That's all she cared about at her core, the money. And she was going to prostitute herself. She was going to use him, abuse him. The abuse came much worse later. But having said that, I've said it many times, the story. So, the lowlights and you'll see these featured on a video I have upcoming, prayerfully, of what happened to him in his life with her. So he loses, I'll just give you sort of the dates I remember. So they get together in 1987. He hires her as his secretary at the hospital newspapers group. In 1990, the company goes bankrupt. So that company's done. He loses his DiBello publishing company. That company starts, and here's the thing. He never made any money with her. He only lost money with her, sold off his assets. And if he didn't, make at least break even on something, if he invested like $50,000 to build a home or start a business, if it got back to even, she pocketed, like I said, most of the money. See, her financial agenda from the beginning was to make sure she had enough money to live her life after my father died. Not only to live the lavish life she wanted to lead while he was alive, not spending the money on him or them, but the money on her. Not only is she drawing a salary from, all her jobs with him, she eventually started getting funded by my Anthony's second son, also an evil-minded person, who is now a multimillionaire, who, began shortly, at some point funneling then money. But again, anytime he'd have a business transaction, and I told this, he even said, Mark, she got $1 million of mine. See, my father's property, he had a house. So, I'm jumping out of order here. So let me go back a step. So after he gets, the hospital news gets disbanded, she just keeps spending his money. So he sold a property. I don't remember when it was. He got like $45,000 or something for it. I don't know if this acreage is right. I said maybe 10 acres up where, we grew up on Best Road. But either way, I know he carved out a property and let somebody build a house on it. He got like $40,000. Now he trusted her with the money. So again, she's pocketing most of the money, not to invest with him on a business or help him succeed, but so she could, because she's investing in his death. See, she's more concerned with what her life is going to be like when my daddy's gone, not what his life is like when he's alive. I mean, that's as whorish as it gets. So he would later, so as I mentioned before, if you just took a step back and looked, say, well, you know what? He started with basically nothing. He met my mom. He had everything. I've said it before, a family of 8, like in 10 years, successful business, multiple automobiles, no criminal record, sound mind and body, a lot of friends, close-knit family. He loses my mom, so he kind of in a neutral area for like 5 years. And then he meets her and then goes and loses everything. He lost his house. He lost his mind, in a sense, because of what she did to brainwash and gaslight and groom him. He lost his family. He lost all his businesses. He lost his clean criminal record because around 90, maybe 96, I think 96. 95, 96. He had this Bingo City, a charitable business, and I've told the story before. You can look it up. Go to my website. Click on YouTube. Go to Bingo City, the film that I made, the documentary. That company ends up, he confesses to me that she basically, misdealt with the money, had misdealings, fraud, embezzlement type of things, and that he had to protect her, and Joseph, his right-hand man, thinks the government is coming after them, that this was all by accident or some attack of the government. No. She's made a mistake with the paperwork and or pocketed, started, finagling the finances. So my father, of course, chivalrous and valiant as he is, and, in love, I suspect at the time, he didn't feel he had any option, so he had to protect her. So he took a felony charge. It cost him $500,000 in legal defense, fines, or I guess legal defense, another $50,000 or $100,000, whatever it was, in fines. She's the only one. Now, I said I wasn't going to get involved. I told him, he asked me, he was heartbroken. I said, Dad, if she's involved, I'm not going to be involved. I know how it's going to end. Not only did God tell me, but I only have to look at how she operates. Because, see, the story that, I told before wasn't hard an indicator for me. About a year into their marriage, I guess they were married 87, 88, so like 1990 or so, I go to my father's house to borrow a truck. She hears it. She knows it. He lends me the truck. She decides to call the police and tell them I stole the truck. I get arrested, jailed for like 6 days. I ask if she wants to apologize. She says, quote unquote, and I'm paraphrasing here, F you, and she uses the words, no, you and your father need to know I'm in control. I will own all of this one day. F you, and I will have no problem having you arrested again, meaning falsely arrested. With God as my witness, she said that to me twice. So I didn't tell my dad because I knew he'd be heartbroken. He might not even believe me, for all I know. I know she lies about everything. Oh, no, I never said that. But you know what? He didn't even know I got arrested. I never told him. I don't think until maybe 3, 4, 5 years before he died, maybe, when he had already known what she was about. But having said that, anyway, so I knew. I mean, who does that? Who even thinks that way? And it would only get worse. So again, Bingo City goes bankrupt. And then, he has to start selling off. He's tried building homes. She actually took a job, I found out in the newspaper, at a real estate place. Now, there had to be some chicanery behind that because he's selling off, or she's selling off, all his property. So he sold one, parcel for like $45,000, one for $270-something thousand, and the third, I think, was $100,000. And then he had to sell his main house. Now, I'm going to give you the math here quickly, for like $650,000 or $690,000, the house we grew up in, that he lived in for almost 50 years. But she wanted it sold. She wanted to move closer to her daughters, convenience herself, and basically, was leaving my father bankrupt because she would, every time they got the money, she would spend most of it on herself. She would, secure or hide most of it. keep it for herself, and then, any of the money spent on my dad, or any business propositions, things they had together, she'd have to go to the nicest restaurants, travel to the best places, have the best car, whatever. And he was sacrificing. He's generous. He did very little. He started doing less and less every year he met her. Less and less money spent on him, including just the quality of his own food. I mean, I told you, for 100, I can't imagine, I can't tell you how many times I saw him have to eat hot dogs for dinner because he knew how to microwave them, because my dad, he could do a lot of things, but he couldn't really cook, and he didn't really want to cook. Or he had cereal, breakfast, lunch, dinner, cereal. She wouldn't even cook for him. But that was the affordable food that, they would get. So all the while, she's banking all this money. In addition to all these little side gigs she had, short time DoorDash, started something called the Prayer Place or something, was baking cheesecakes or something I read in the newspaper. I learned, it makes me, the devil, just having to investigate this and report on this, never have I sensed the devil so much, in my life. But when it just a pipeline to having to learn and research about what she did to him. So he sells all these parcels, and the main house, I guess, gets sold in 2018 for $650,000 or so, like I said, between 650, 680, 690, somewhere in that area. They moved to East Greenbush. Now, see, my father had said, Mark, she got $1 million of mine. And of course, this one aunt again said, no way. And Joseph, is atheistic, who's in love with her. I don't know what she has on him or how he could be so I know how. He loves money too, but how any of these children of his, my dad's, could be so ungodly. Everything I said was happening year by year. Everything I prophesied, predicted. I'm the godliest person, any of these people. And I'll just say this before I go back to the story. Whomever's watching, you will not know anybody godlier than me. And I can tell you by just saying 3 things right now. 3 things. And if any of you can answer to any of these 3, and this is on my website somewhere, then you can profess to being godlier than me or not more knowledgeable about God. 1, how many of you think you're going to heaven? How many people say, yeah, I'm going to heaven for sure, or I know I'm going, or my loved one is looking down? Wrong. How dare you to think you know where you're going, where God, the creator, the landlord of heaven, who's going to judge you on your dying day, whether you get in or not. How do you already think you know you're going? You're being deceived. You're not being godly. You're evil. You don't know where you're going. I've said this before. I don't know. I don't need to know. I don't want to know. All I know is God knows. It's God's choice where he wants to send a person when they die. Heaven is the most exclusive residence, if you want to call it that, in the history of creation. There are very few people in heaven, okay? And nobody knows who's getting in or who's going, least of all I. You can guess, you can have an estimate, you can predict, you can, analyze. But anyway, that's number 1. Number 2, how many of you people kill animals? How many people you kill animals? You might say, I don't kill animals. I don't hunt. I don't, slaughter animals. Really? How many of you have a meat, or what you call meat, for dinner? Food. How many have animals for food? You're killing those animals. You are a serial killer. You are an accomplice to the serial killing of God's creation. Okay? I don't want to preach again about the critters, but I've preached about them many times. And you can just go to my website /God and see what I wrote, markanthonydibello.com/God, and see what I wrote about diet. So number 1, people are you think you're going to heaven. Wrong. I don't know I'm going to heaven. 2, I'm not eating the animals. I haven't eaten an animal in many years, thank God. I don't kill them, not because of just the benefits of the health reasons, but because in my heart I know it's killing God's creation. I see an animal, I see God right there. And let's say for number 3, how many of you have been alone hours, 96-hour work weeks, many of those hours meditating, praying, preaching, doing something for our Father, my Father, Father God. My Father, Father God. How many of you have been falsely jailed where you had nothing to do but sit there and pray to God? How many have been shot at? How many have been left homeless? How many have been victimized? Get everybody's curse and evil. Had guns pointed at your head by police. Hundreds, at least pulled over, like I said, over 500 times. My life clearly threatened. At least 10 times guns pointed. President Trump had a bullet nick his ear. I had a bullet whisked by my face in Troy in a shooting incident many years ago. And I wasn't even that spiritual back then. Why? Because I know more about God than I can guarantee you anybody watching this, and the devil wants me dead because of it. Now, I'm not perfect. I sin at times. I admit. None of us is perfect. God knows. But when it comes to knowing the life of my daddy and what was going to happen to him in this situation, getting back to this, chronology, no one knows what I know. Not to mention I have the evidence of it, his testimony, my eyewitness accounts, my listening accounts. Just tracking the evidence is not hard to figure out. So like I said, so he's now breaking up I'm going back now, breaking up the parcels of the land. She's profiting all the money, most of the money, 90% of it. And everything in his life degrades, including her treatment of him. The less money he had, the worse her treatment of him got. Meaning the money was the reason she was treating him decently. So, without getting all into that again, because I do have to give these updates. Let me give a quick look at the time. All right, 30 minutes. So I'll try to knock this out in 15 minutes, believe it or not. So, he starts selling off his properties. So, that's where she's making the money. On the $600,000, $650,000, like I said, plus sale of the house, she wants to move her family to East Greenbush. Not her family, I'm sorry. She wants to drag, because that's how my father felt. He never wanted to live there. Rented a house at about $2,500, let's say $3,000 at the most. Rented that house for basically 12 months. I think it was $2,500. Yeah, let's say it's $3,000 with electricity and any kind of extras included. So $3,000 a month for 12 months is $36,000 a year. They were there, I believe, 3 years. Okay? So when I did the math earlier, it came out to between like $78,000 and $100,000 at the most. Now the house was sold for $680,000. Whatever I keep saying. So if you spend $100,000 on your rent for the next 3 or 4 years in East Greenbush, you've still got $550K. After that 4 years, she buys for $160,000 a home at 54 East Home in Schenectady under the name of her and some girl, Carrie, I guess her daughter, Carrie Utstein, who obviously married a Jewish guy. Christian daughters all marrying Jewish men, but all that aside, I'm not trying to be, anti-Semitic, but the point is, that's just an oddity. So she pays for, $160,000 home. Where did the $600, the $500 on, again, the money from the $45,000 property sale, a $277,000 property sale, a $90,000 or $100,000 property sale, and a $650,000+ property sale? It's not going to where's it going? This one aunt said, your father gambles it away. Really? That much money? My father's made money every year I've ever known him at horse racing, and somehow or another he's managed at football since I've known him. And when he had me, who's like I just won an NFL contest with a record of 60-30, which is 67%, I beat 758 other players, and I had an off year. And the technical glitch kept me from being 65-25, which would have won every contest basically in America. And I'm giving him winners for a decade at least. She's got all that money. And this aunt says, there's no way she's got that much. In addition to all the money, like I said, this multimillionaire Joseph has sent her in the recent years. Life insurance policies, when my dad dies, which is, again, the big part of the story here, and then I'll give these updates. So now it comes to, they moved to this place in Schenectady. My father is, I already told him multiple times, depressed. He's neglected. He'd been always financially abused and emotionally abused. And then the abuse, and I witnessed it myself. I heard the threats. I listened. I heard her throw, knives at him. I heard her threaten his life. I heard every possible evil thing you could do to a man. She did. Including, well, I'll show you because I'm going to have to show this police report on the thing. So he's in Schenectady with her. And now, again, that house is paid for cash. And you heard the audio recording. She's telling him he's so DG cheap, he doesn't contribute for anything. She wants to make sure she gets his last Social Security check. He's eating too much, she said. Food is so expensive. But she's going out to fancy Chinese restaurants. She's doing living like my father said, going on trips to Maine. Oh, I mean, it's just unconscionable. Unconscionable. I used the word incorrectly last message. I apologize. So anyway, so now with the abuse comes physical. Again, he wants to divorce her, and he reaches out to me. That's when she files this fraudulent protection order. Nothing in it was true. It's granted in default by this corrupt judge. I don't care. You know, I don't want to say I don't care, because part of the thing said, the order said, you know, that Mark is harassing her because, and I'm a threat, because one, I have freedom of speech. See, that's not harassment. Two is, I'm reporting a crime. How evil and wicked and, you know, can this, you know, person be? And then this corrupt judge, Elizabeth Walsh, rents her family car, who, by the way, I realized, because the husband dies in 1990, I think it is, in a fire. Because, you know, so he had, in East Greenbush, off of Hayes Road, so he had ties, she had more ties to East Greenbush than I thought, which would certainly come in handy later, because, again, not only is it the judge, her lawyer is the public defender. Her lawyer is this person, Ruth Tompkins or something, and then her lawyer actually, after my father dies, gives, you know, writes an obituary. What lawyer writes an obituary, not an obituary, a condolence, publicly, on the internet, saying, oh, I'm sorry for your loss, poor her, poor Donna. Really? But the corruption in that court system and that person, and then the family members to be so ignorant, unintelligent, so ungodly, so, you know, maybe duped and deceived themselves, which I know they were. But how can you not see the truth? Why do you think she was so vehement in wanting, again, once she filed, my father, she heard my dad wanted to divorce her, she took out that false protection order. That's as classic an abuse isolation tactic as there is. Why? What threat was I? Am I a threat to my dad? What threat was I to my dad? You don't think I would have loved him more, treated him better? Plus, I had money. I would spend on him. I just had won $40,000 in a poker tournament. I would easily spend it on him. You know, his son Joseph, that wealthy multimillionaire, he could have bought $5,000 to him is like a nickel. He's reaching in his pocket, giving her money to further mistreat my father. And then if I spent, like I did, $500 in my father's airfare to get him to leave where he wanted to go somewhere, Joey sends her $5,000 and she can stay home that day and not go out, do some other side work or try to meet another wealthy man like my father said at Proctor's Theater. And she can stay home and make sure my father misses his flight like he did 3 times. Cost me $1,500. And she made $15,000 at least, or whatever Joey sent. My father, he wasn't always clear on the thing because, you know, he wouldn't get the check or the figure or the wire. And the same thing with the Social Security. So she's down to leaving him homeless and broke. So one of the things I'll give you an update on, and you can see it again here, I'll make it clear, is, and I'll put the insert up, of this police report on, and I mentioned this before, November 28th, my dad's 89th birthday. So that would have been 20, he's born in 32, 2000, oh God, I'm getting tired, my math is so bad. And it's usually so good. All right, he died at 91, so it was 2 years, he died in 2024, so 2 years before his death, so 2022. Oh no, actually it's 21, I think you'll see on the police report here. Yeah, it's 21. The police report. You can pause, you can go back and watch it. On his birthday, I heard the call by accident of her yelling at him, throwing stuff at him, threatening him. He calls me up moments later to tell me what was happening. I said, Dad, I heard it by accident. I heard it. I didn't get it recorded, I don't think, quick enough, but he wanted to tell me. Then he called the police. The police come out. Now, I might be mistaken. I don't think this was Schenectady. Actually, this was East Greenbush. So I might be off on whatever the date is. You can look at the report. Oh, no, he wasn't Schenectady. So here's what it says in the report. Just look at the first line. Anthony called the police. Anthony called. Then everything after that is how he criminally, violated her in some way. Because that's what she lied and told the police. The police, this is how an abusive household works. The police are coming. You're either going to get beaten after they leave. You're going to get locked in the room. You're going to get threatened. You're terrified because you have nowhere else to live. You're worried the police are going to remove you. You're threatening that you're going to have, get him arrested because the report said he grabbed her phone. He woke her up in the middle of the night. He did all these things wrong. Think, what criminal calls the police when they're doing something wrong? What criminal? If he was truly doing something wrong to her, she would have been the one to call the police, and that's written in the police report. But no, and I heard it. She lied 100%. I heard it and will go to my grave, put my hand on a Bible in a court of law, and go on a lie detector test. I heard what really happened. And then my dad called me up to tell me what really happened. But again, that's how she did with so many incidences, especially when the police were called, on these domestic violence calls. So now, again, to get to the end, I guess I'll try to wrap this up in 5 minutes with some updates. I wanted to mention that report. So, my father, again, I can't say too much because it's just too heartbreaking right now, but some of the updates were, I get, so there's, again, the finances, the money, where this, the money, the $1 million or close to it, and how she's been, setting it aside. And again, Joey was sending money to his second son, and my father was begging, Mark, tell him, please, now stop sending her money. The more money she gets, the more empowered she gets, the weaker I get. My father's not getting the money. She's just getting wealthier and wealthier. And Joseph is, he's so lost. He's just so lost. And then he emails me, which I mentioned, threatening me because I put the truth up on Bingo City, and he's worried for his friend's image. His friends are a bunch of weasels. This one little, small-headed guy's kind of a weasel, George Barna. What a ass loser this guy is. I don't want to use dirty language, but he was always jealous of me. Always, my father knew, and especially later on, he couldn't trust him. Kind of a tough guy. He thought he was always a tough guy, and then he's working Joe for his money. But they're good friends, and I understand that. Joe likes that type of guy. Whatever. But Joey wants to defend this guy, just like my aunt said to him, Mark, if we go to a court of law, I'll defend Donna before I defend you. I'd rather see you in jail than her. Really? I was falsely arrested 3 times in 30 years. The only times I've been in jail, but all 3 times because of her. But my aunt says it was my own fault. Really? Let's see, she falsely arrested me for stealing a truck. I cleared up this story on this video coming out later of when, how, my father was promised me he was going to, give me, I think, $500 to write the review for his book that he wrote. And of course, and this is part of the reason I said, going back earlier about buying the book, I knew this when I read some of the excerpts. A couple things. One is, she looks like an angel in it. Her and her kids are the best things that ever happened. I know she was working my father side by side the whole time. Maybe screwing, putting screws in his thumbs, write this about me. And I'm only mentioned basically twice. Really? The whole book I'm mentioned twice. One is just a poem that I wrote to my dad, which I'll never regret writing, When I Remind Me of You. Something like, or When I Remind You of Me, Mark Anthony, whatever. And then the second was a little quip he made about Mark always wants his father to be on a game show. That's it. Me, his eldest son, and all the things I've accomplished in my life, and I only appeared twice in his book. That's because she's in there. She's involved. She's holding the purse strings, literally, over that writing. So anyway, having said that, this guy, here's Kitty Boy. All right, come on, Kitty. You want to make an appearance? Come on, say hi. All right, there's the Kitty Boy. Are you happy? Look at. You good, Kitty Boy? You're a good Kitty Boy. I love you. I rough him up sometimes, so he not. I would never hurt the Kitty Boy, but I just get physical with him so he plays a little bit. And when I get frustrated, I got it. Okay, E-Boy, take a seat. I lay down. Are you gonna sit down? You're blocking me. You want to lay down, and I'll finish talking. He'll lay down, or he'll tilt his head. He wants scratchies. See, when he tilts his head, he'll tilt his head on the side. He wants scratchies. You want the scratchies, E-Boy? Watch his eyes. He loves the scratchies. He loves scratchies on the side of his head. He likes eating and scratchies. That's his favorite 2 things. Eating and scratchies, and sleeping next to me. Sleeping. He loves to cuddle. right, E-boy? And he likes to talk. He talks sometimes. He likes to talk. All right, so Kitty Boy, come on. I got to finish this message. All right, so getting the updates, like I said. So this Joseph says you got one day to take down Bingo City. Really? Okay, Joseph. Well, you got to get your head straight, because you know what? I'm sick of being falsely accused by you, treated like I'm the lowest scum on the earth by not only him but all my father's children. And I don't. My father was disappointed in them too. And I understand some of it. Some of them, I give him some excuses. Susan was only 11 when my mom died, so she's lost. She doesn't have anybody. And then there's something for all the other ones too. But most of them are just ungodly, and they, all those things I mentioned before. And she, this evil Donna, she could gaslight anybody. But you don't have to look far. Like I said, my father has nothing. He died. He was begging for his life by the time he was gone. So again, the updates. So, and I don't know if I'm going to record this message again, but the update is this: my father's passing is coming up March 31st, 2 years. This is why some legal processes take a long time. The courts are slow, especially in New York. They're unjust, they're corrupt, they're slow. Nobody wants to help. Nobody's helping me. Nobody wants to help. Nobody cares. They didn't care when my dad was alive. They're sure as heck not caring why he's dead. They all have a money agenda before they have a God agenda. They all have a money agenda before, they have any love for my dad or me. I'm like the most hated person. But the good news for me is there's a TV thing coming out on me this week. By the time this message gets up perfectly, it'll be out the week of. So if today's Friday the 7th, Saturday the 8th, Sunday the 9th, the 10th. My mom's birthday 11th. Maybe it'll come out on my mom's birthday. That would be ironic, February 11th. But it's going to, give me the opportunity prayerfully to shed some light on, again, this situation. Because for me, I want the same thing now. I have to get the same thing my dad wanted. He wanted justice. He wanted, justice. The only justice I'm going to have, it'll never be enough. I just want my dad back. I could give a damn about her, but she belongs, like my dad said, in jail. I mean, whether he was neglected or something nefarious happened, but he died. He didn't need to die from what he died from within 24 hours. He could have been beaten by her. He could have been neglected by her, stabbed by her. I mean, and, I told him he knew. I said, Dad, and he even said, Mark, if you leave me alone with her, she'll kill me. So, anyway, and sure enough, he died. And my father said she's going to profit with life insurance, Mark. Like I said, she said he left none. I heard nothing of a will. I don't get into it again. 3 pieces of paper I got with photocopies of pictures I already had. Really? That's all my father wanted me to have? Really? And he told me, he said, Mark, please tell my story and don't let her get away with it. So I'm not going to. I hate her. I mean, just like God hates evil. The injustice, like my father said, pig whore bitch. That's what he called her, repeatedly. How kids all betrayed him. He's right. They did. And I even, like I said, in some ways I could have done things differently. I did all I could. Not all I could, because he's not alive. I could have. I don't know what. I couldn't keep him alive from jail, but I would have if I could. I'd rather be in jail and him be alive than not be in jail. That's God is my witness. God is my witness. I don't care if I'm in. I don't care if they're putting me in the electric chair. I just didn't want to die before him. But I can't even get into what the damage this has done to me. I just can't cry anymore on camera. I can. I don't care. But anyway, I know I'm being a little irrational now, and whatever I'm saying might not be making sense. But I'm tired. It's the end of a 16-hour day. So. Anyway, so that's the update, that these people by the time my dad's birthday is here, I'm sorry, is the remembrance Easter Sunday of his death, I am going to make sure I've contacted as many law enforcement, legal places, agencies as I can. So she gets her justice. She has to, go through the hell that I've been put through with being falsely, not that she'd be, it's true, to find out what happened, get arrested. I don't want to see anybody killed, but, get arrested. Joseph, sue him for every nickel he's got. Not every nickel, minus 10%. Her every nickel she's got. One way or another. And Joseph, he can keep 10% of what he's got. 10% of what he has is at least $1 million. So he can live on that. But I don't even care about the money. It's not even about the money. It's about, you know what? I don't know. Getting somebody to apologize, I give them the money back. I don't know. But because you could give me all the money in the world, and I'm still, it'll help a little bit. But I don't. I'm broken for the rest of my life because of what she did to my daddy and me, and what those betrayers did, and everybody for that matter. I mean, how many people out there? Ask yourself, if you know me, did you call to help? Did you listen to my pleas, my cries? What'd you do to help? I mean, I still got a couple people I consider friends, maybe one or two. My aunt, my one aunt, I talked to her. My aunt Mary, God bless her, and me just celebrated her 101st, I think, birthday. She told me February 2nd, or her 102nd birthday. I guess, yeah, 101st, 102nd, whatever it is. But we had a long chat. But anyway, all right. So I think that's about it for the update. So hopefully, again, I'll shine some light. More light will get shined. Shined. I don't know the right word on this travesty, this tragedy, this injustice, this crime. It's criminal, and what they did to me, all the false things I was charged with and accused of, and damage done to me and my poor daddy. Poor daddy. Poor daddy. He didn't deserve it. He just didn't. He should still be alive. He could have made it many more years to die in peace. Anyway, I think that's it on the updates. Let's see. I'll talk 9 more minutes. Why not? I've gone for an hour on these other messages. If anybody watches or listens this long. So let me think what else there is. Yeah, I'm still everything. Nightmares, problems with everything in life. Gotten out of little financial problems. Some of those have been rectified with some success I had the end December 3rd, December 3rd or 3rd and 4th. A real blessing I got to help me a little bit financially, but still working all the time. A lot of projects, still able to make everybody else money. I don't worry about it that much. But for these people to keep, I mean, the way, I just can't, how these people can kill, let somebody basically, you know, kill the life of somebody's, in their heart, their spirit, their emotions, their mind, and maybe even their physical being, just for money, out of greed, and then what they've done to me. I'm too much of a nice guy too. I'm like, you know what? I try to I don't want to say turn the. I don't want to talk so personally. Let me give some updates. Um, the legal authorities, all the evidence, the things added with my daddy's book. I mentioned that. The police report you'll see up there. Um, I don't know. I'm trying to think of what else. I wanted to add. I don't know. All right, I'm tired. I'm tired. No, I guess I'll pause, and if I think of something, I'll just come back on. Oh, I know what else I can talk about real quick. Again, maybe I'll put it up here again. The insert of this guy dying. It wasn't. It doesn't tell about the fire. I got that in a different report. I didn't put up here, but he died in a fire because see, my father said she killed him. Well, here's a couple things. First, I heard he died from suicide. Now, the divorce thing. See, here's the thing. There were so many lies told. I know they come out of her mouth. Okay, she lies 90% of the time, if not 100% of the time. So when they first got together, her and my dad told me the husband, committed suicide. Then later on, my dad told me that she actually murdered the husband. My dad alleges she murdered the husband for insurance money, just like she wanted to see my dad dead so she'd get extra insurance money, which I know she got through this post office box. And I mean, there's no way she didn't get extra insurance money and all the other money. But here's the thing. So I just asked somebody else, and they said, yeah, they also heard that he died by suicide. Actually, 2 other people. One was an extended relative of his, and 2 was somebody that that I mentioned previously. I won't mention her name, but she said, yeah, I heard he died by suicide too, and that's what I was told for a long time. And then I was told there was no divorce. Then there was a divorce. Well, there had to be a divorce. You can't marry 2 people. And then now so the point is, he dies in this fire in 1990. How many people die in their own house fire? How many people die? I mean, if you don't have a fire alarm, I suspect if the house is engulfed in flames, by the time it gets to your bedroom or something, you could get stuck in the fire and die. He's only like 38 or something at the time, 42, between 38 and 42. I don't have exactly the numbers on me. I have them, I just don't have them off the top of my head. And maybe, again, maybe my father's story. Again, I told how why he might have been misinformed, but again, she was divorced, so he shouldn't have been marrying her in the first place, which is what I had always told him for years. I said, Dad, God told you that in the Bible. What else do you need to hear? Not to mention, I told him, and you could only, like I said, see the evidence. And then if the guy did commit suicide, I mean, how miserable did she make his life that he would kill himself? I mean, you know what? You leave your husband, and then you end up, what did you do? What did she do to him? I could see. My father ended up wanting to kill himself, and he never thought that way. For the way she terrorized him, she made my dad suicidal. So maybe he killed himself, and that's, by setting the fire. I don't know. I'll have to find out more details. It's difficult. And of course, again, it's New York, and she's always trying to cover up everything. And then again, there could be the possibility that she did do something, like my father said. Maybe she did, and ran out the other door and left set the house on fire to destroy evidence. That's the oldest trick in the book, right? Set a house on fire, destroy all the evidence, because apparently that's what killed the guy. So it stinks to high heaven, so as my dad might say. It just stinks, all of it. I mean, the tragedy that this woman causes people, and even my father, had to hear another story, and I'll just leave with these two, and I'll close with something else. One story he started talking about in the book was how he had these two country bumpkin guys try to dig out this pond up at his house with a bulldozer, and he had to shoot at these guys. They were started to put the bulldozer going toward his house. My father, at first, he didn't really want that pond. She wanted that pond. Which I said, Dad, you're ruining the property. A pond, you could do so many other things. And I guarantee you, with God as she was responsible for these two losers that came up there that to destroy this property of my daddy's. And whatever they did with the bulldozer, because my father says the bulldozer, they came at the house, he had to shoot bullets at him. They were going to plow over the house because they wanted all the money up front for doing a $2,000 job, and they wouldn't even do the first part where my dad gave him $1,000. So the police were called, the whole thing. But I guarantee you, these two, loser country hillbilly types or thugs were associates of hers. That's the kind of people she used and knew. The other the other story is, darn, I just had it on the tip of my tongue. I forget. Jeez. I forget what I was going to say. It doesn't matter. Oh, a pastor. My father, pastor dies up in his arms up there on the property. Our property was blessed up there. That was God's land. People weren't dying. The only people who were dying were the animals she was killing when she got up there. And this pastor dies in my father's arms. She has such a curse around her. That's why I told Dad I wouldn't even touch her. And I never did. I never even shook her hand. I never wanted to go near her even just brush against her by accident. I even like being in the same room with her. It's not hard to tell she's cursed. For me, it's easy to tell she's cursed. But to know how evil she is, and again, all you got to do, what did my dad... think what happened to my dad. Think what she's done to me. Don't you think I have better things to do or talk about for an hour? All the time I had to spend in court. I keep in one of my daddies and I'm definitely ending up here. 5 minutes. So I think I'm done here in any minute. One of my daddy's favorite movies and I was Shawshank Redemption, prison movie. I can't watch any prison movies for fear I'm going to get thrown in there. I can't watch movies on abuse anymore. I can't watch anything with regards to greed, like American Greed or whatever they call it. That show. About all these, about gold diggers and what women do and how they kill men for money and life insurance and all these. I'm like, all these people are like, I can't get people to invest $100. I can turn everybody's $100 into, $10,000 at the end of the year. These people are getting tens of millions of dollars, and I know you can look at them and say, they're going to rip you off. That's how bad the world is. These people, 90, 95, 99% of people, ungodly, lost. They might have all the money, but they've got no, say no sense, pun intended. But they're all going to be in hell, and they're all evil-minded, and all of them. The women, oh God, how many women whore themselves out? I'm just going to throw this in there real quick. I mean, this is like this woman. Oh, never mind. I won't even mention it. But money, the root of all evil. The Bible says, right? The love of money is the root of all sorts of evil. But anyways, so I'm done with it. I mean, like I said, I'm going to the thing I can, and I'll just leave with this. The thing I can most do now is use my First Amendment right. The reason we have a freedom of the press is to talk about these crimes, these injustices, so it doesn't happen to somebody else. So my dad's story is told, the truth is told, and maybe the truth will set me free. So I'm not imprisoned by all the false accusations, all the lies, all the untruths, all the evil things that have been done to my daddy and me because of her and her supporters and the family, this cult-like family she turned them into that follow her. So I'm going to do I got it because it's saving my own life. I got to save my own life. I mean, my dad's death would be in vain if I kill myself or I let her hurt me or harm me or make me afraid anymore. Or the cops that she works with, these, ungodly cops, many of them. Look at the kitty boy. Isn't the kitty boy handsome? He's a real handsome boy. He's my little rescue boy. I rescued him. All right. Well, anyway, so that's the message. So those people, I don't care what it, like I said, they can all go to jail, and they can pay their due financially, get my money back. And if anything happens to me, you'll know why. You know who was behind it, because here's the last thing. According to this Joseph DiBello, again threatening with extorting it basically with his will, dangling a carrot. No, you're going to lose $800,000. If God bless him, he's got that much money to give to. Listen, he's giving it to 8 kids. He says that's $6.4 million, but he's giving her $800,000. I don't know whether she knows that or not. Her, what she did to my dad, he's going to give her $800,000. What she did to me. Now if she's going to, if she'll do somebody in like that for that much, she'll do me in. And she's always trying. Every time I turn around, she's trying something. But anyway, so we got a new president, a new administration. It's a little more godly, much more godly, much more godly than, the old administration and all these women that were, but New York is still a corrupt mess. And of course, I don't know, these people in my father's that betrayed my dad, I don't know if they'll ever get the truth right in their mind and just open their eyes. It's not hard to see. It's not hard to see. Anyway, if you want more information, again, just go to markanthonydibello.com, click on projects, click on a cult of one or a cult of none, and there's more of the evidence. And God bless. God rest the soul of my daddy and my mommy, and I pray I get to see him again one day. I gotta go. I'm tired. All right? In the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, amen. God bless. Here's the last thing. According to this Joseph DiBello, again threatening with extorting it basically with his will, dangling a carrot. No, you're going to lose $800,000. If God bless him, he's got that much money to give to. Listen, he's giving it to 8 kids. He says that's $6.4 million, but he's giving her $800,000. I don't know whether she knows that or not. Her, what she did to my dad, he's going to give her $800,000. What she did to me. Now if she's going to, if she'll do somebody in like that for that much, she'll do me in. And she's always trying. Every time I turn around, she's trying something. But anyway, so we got a new president, a new administration. It's a little more godly, much more godly, much more godly than, the old administration and all these women that were, but New York is still a corrupt mess. And of course, I don't know, these people in my father's that betrayed my dad, I don't know if they'll ever get the truth right in their mind and just open their eyes. It's not hard to see. It's not hard to see. Anyway, if you want more information, again, just go to markanthonydibello.com, click on projects, click on a cult of one or a cult of none, and there's more of the evidence. And God bless. God rest the soul of my daddy and my mommy, and I pray I get to see him again one day. I gotta go. I'm tired. All right? In the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, amen. God bless.